I coincidentally ended up choosing a major which has the highest dropout rate for first year students. That stresses me out a lot. I failed the obligatory math test that we had to do to sign up. I failed by 1 mark actually, and after getting back those results, I really started not feeling good enough to even do that major. Honestly, I felt stupid. It's nice being called smart, but in that moment I just really thought I'm not. My dad says I'm biting off more than I can chew. Since I'll be a first year engineering student next year, I'll be building a YouTube channel. I'm also finally going to learn how to play the piano, and I am going to pursue modeling, which he doesn't even know yet. I'm afraid of failing. I end up anxious and I just keep procrastinating. And truly, the only way I can fix this is simply by starting. I just finished getting dressed and it's 8:50 and I was supposed to be done with this at 7:50. Who needs 30 minutes to get ready in the morning? I do, apparently. I took 30 minutes to pick out this. No, I took enough time. Way too much time to pick out this in my hair, and I still don't really like my outfit. Normally, because I time blocked everything today, I would be done with my first work block in 10 minutes. And then I would have to go and eat. I could just go and eat breakfast, but decided to still do a bit of work, and then I'll go and eat breakfast to keep the momentum going, so I'll still have a little bit done before I eat. So, let's do some math, shall we? Today I discovered the Khan Academy, and I will now be resuming linear equations.
You just keep pushing. I made every mistake that could be made, but I just kept pushing, which I think is very, very wise.
Possibilities. I'm kind of enjoying editing this, I'm not gonna lie. Right now I have to go and make a salad for lunch, so I'm gonna go. These are all of the fonts that I'm considering. I shall continue post lunch. Second work block completed. We're now in the kitchen. Let me make this salad.
So I have to finish up the work for it too, because so I wanted to quickly unbox it with you guys.
I'm ready to go to the gym right now. I'm in a bad mood because I'm wearing these stupid joggers. Yes. So I'm gonna work off that energy. I'm currently lying in my bed because I'm extremely tired after Work. My eyes are slightly red. I'm leaving for vacay tomorrow. And I haven't packed anything. I just watched Ain't I Lay music video by Adela. After that I watched the Pop Girl music video by Lexi Liu featured Eves. And then now I'm watching the Kiss and Tell Aspa music video. And after this I'm gonna snooze. I haven't packed my bags. We're leaving in the morning. I've officially packed my bag. My mom woke me up at 7, but I woke up at 6:30 already before that because I forgot to off my alarm from yesterday. I have all of my editing supplies with me so I can edit this vlog and upload it on time. I'm ready to leave. Gonna make breakfast now, starting off by toasting some bread. I just got back home from vacay actually, and as you can see I'm filming in the same spot as the intro. If you want you can connect the dots. Filming this video did kind of help me like actually lock in, because inactivity makes me feel really anxious. So day 1 I locked in by studying and cleaning up my room a bit, which I really needed. The next day I had to work a whole day, which I haven't done before, because I do actually have a job, thank God, but I only work like half days, half shifts. This was the first day I had to work a full day, and it was a different job actually. Yeah, that actually killed me. That day I actually woke up with a sore throat already. So the next day it was even worse, and since then I've just been tired. I'm still tired, but that's just because I slept in the car. And I'm also still sick. I just keep coughing so much. This is an imitation. It sounds worse when I actually cough. I don't really know how one would lock in on vacay, which is meant to relax and all. So I've just been doing my best editing this vlog as good as possible. I filmed this to keep me accountable. I started and now I just need to keep going. Thanks to that I finally will get to lock in. This will be my new filming spot, by the way.